All right, it looks like we are live. Let me just refresh the page a couple times here, make sure that we are broadcasting. Yes, it looks like we are good to go. And then I will also open up the chat in my view. Great. We can give everyone like a few minutes to join us since it looks like, oh yeah, we have a few folks who are starting to join. And I just noticed as well that like this is maybe the first time that I'm wearing a collared shirt for like a year. And of course I picked the worst collar shirt on the video that has these weird patterns. Sorry, everybody.
That's okay. Did you get the Did you do your makeup though? That's very important too. Besides the shirt.
Yeah, I got the makeup right. I got everything except I got my hair done,
Okay,
just not
perfect.
the shirt. So
Okay, good.
I'll be better about it next time. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We are back with a new episode of our ongoing series on how to augment data in Honeycode. Daniel, it's, as always, very good to see you.
Lovely to be here. Love it.
It is our third episode now, and the topic today is you're going to show us how to display context when someone is making edits in a Honeycode app. So we're really excited about it, really looking forward to it. I wanted to, before getting started, just reminding everybody, we had the first episode now about 2 weeks ago where we covered how to display white tables in a narrow app. That was very helpful, like showing the different tabs. I know it's come up in a number of conversations since, so that was a really great video. And then last week, we recorded another episode to demonstrate how to set up bulk editing in Honeycode. We unfortunately had a scheduling conflict with Pi Week. I hope everybody enjoyed Pi Week last week. But our video on bulk editing is going to be added to this channel under the Honeycode collection later today. So if that's ever helpful, like please check back. You'll be able to access Daniel's demo around this. And then next week, we'll talk about how to import and export data, and as well as automations. And then the week after, we'll have an episode on how to manage approvals within Teams. So I also just displayed a link here of in our community forums where you can see and we have posted links to videos from previous episodes. We'll continue to keep this page updated, and there are descriptions of our upcoming episodes as well. So the last quick note from me for everybody who's live right now, I'm monitoring the chat. Please ask any questions in the chat. I'll do my best to either respond or I'll interrupt Daniel to have him give us the answer during the stream. Otherwise, if we don't get to it over the course of the conversation, of course, we'll answer the questions at the end. All right, well, with all that said, Daniel, I'll turn it over to you and let me add your screen here.
No, totally. And if people have questions, that's why I'm glad you posted the link that we maintain on the forum, because people can ask questions there about any of these episodes, and we're going to update the links there as well shortly to make sure. I think it's number 2 that we're going to get the link you said today, and then today we're talking about number 3 here, context while editing. So let me just dive into it. So. Just so for a bit of remembering what we're talking about, we're congratulating you, and we're pretending that you, the audience, or me, the speaker, just inherited the music store, and we have to manage all this data on the music store. And yes, we have our own budget, we have our own great team, we can implement all the great new ideas that we have. However, the one thing that we find out right away, in the good, bad, and the ugly, is that you have a lot of messy data and it needs to be cleaned up. And so what we're going to be presenting, these various patterns, is to help you enhance enhance the data, manage the data with Honeycode. Normally, you've been doing this in Excel, or you waited for IT department to build you some application, but they're busy, and you're kind of tired of this email spreadsheet process, and you would like something a little bit better. And so, and then we also pointed out before that this is not a music. We picked the music store just for fun, but this happens in program management, HR. Every team has this problem where there's lots of processes that go via spreadsheets and via email. And so hopefully some of these patterns can help you in the apps that you're trying to build. We don't have any Excel processes, do we, Amari? We've taken them all out.
Everything's been automated in Honeycode, and it's worked out really well. So
yeah, in fact, I should bring up my beach house picture in my background to just fool everybody that I'm just now from the beach. I just press a button once a day.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, we're saying that you or me or Amari plus Honeycode, we can manage these processes. We can manage this data. We can build an app quickly to manage the data that comes our way. And so today we're going to focus on adding context to the editor. Oftentimes, what happens when you're editing, you need to know what else is going on. I can't just like make content. The worst thing that you can do is stare at a blank screen. And so you want to give your editors and your approvers some sort of context to say, hey, here's what was the previously approved data. So that's one option, right? Here's the previously approved data, and here's the data you have to work on today. Or sometimes you want to say, hey, tell me what are some other related records or other related data to the data I'm working on, so I can have it at my fingertips while I am editing this particular data. Or you might even want to point out to some sort of reference data, maybe IMDb, or in our case, we're going to point out to the music store to show other related data that it can help the author or the approver to make a decision or to make content. So does that make sense?
Makes sense. Oh yeah, absolutely. No, this is great. Really looking forward to this.
And actually, in the new and approved data, so there is other patterns that we're going to cover later about keeping a history or an archive or a audit trail, if you will. But today we're just going to talk about before and after. So the new and the before and after and the related records. So
got it.
Let me see if I can jump in and show you what that looks like.
Great.
Oh, just also if you remember, so we are dealing with three different tables here. We have an albums table, we have a records table, which shows the data that got imported, and then we also have a credits table. So credits here talks about artists and producers, right? Not dollar credits. So and this is something that you will edit and that you want to manage about a particular track. So remember this app?
Yeah, this is the app we've seen before.
Yeah, we managed to keep it pretty simple, so there's not a lot of records, but obviously you can search, filter, and you can have a lot more records, and we'll talk about importing next week. But let's pick this album here. So remember last week we talked about how you can see multiple data, right?
This is where you're able to display the three patterns on the same screen.
Right. So I'm just about to jump to that. This one is I'm going to pick one here. So let's just pick a track, and then go to here. And so here's the screen with all the different patterns. I don't think we've seen this one before. So,
nope, this is definitely new.
Right. So the idea here is that while you're editing, right, you can come to actions here. You can turn on edit, and you can say, Daniel. Greatest hit.
Great album.
Because You Are Mine. I thought this is not a Johnny Cash, is it? No. So then you turn off the edit. So you can make edits here, or maybe you can use this for an approval process. But the key here is that you can see the previously approved data. Right. So in this case, it matches because it's the same, and nothing was approved before, so we don't have anything approved. So that's why this is blank here. But that's what the two columns show. Let me see. So the other pattern. So not only previously approved records, but you can show related records. So this is one track out of 12, right? We had 12, I think it was. Oh yeah, 12, huh? It's right there. So now I can iterate through the other tracks on this particular album, for example.
So when you need to see all of the other records associated to that particular album, this is how you would set it up.
Right. This is one way to try to
Yeah.
bring it all together in one screen.
Makes
I mean,
sense.
so to avoid you going back and forth and popping between different screens.
Yeah.
And this was an ask from a customer to kind of see context, and so this is what we came up with, this little carousel idea. So this let's call this a carousel pattern.
Sure.
And then the third thing is, let me show you, not on this one because I don't actually have the album ID set in here, but if you are on this one, I did set the album ID. And so if I'm going to go here to, and I look at, let's say I look at the previous related records for this particular album or this particular song, I can go through, but notice how the album ID stays the same.
Right.
Because I want to have a reference to the album. And so right from here, because you can have links in Honeycode, you can click and go right to the album itself. Maybe it's IMDb or some other album.
Good choice on Dolly Parton, by the way. Is this your way of telling us you're only working 9 to 5 from now on?
Basically, yes.
Yeah, your subtle hint.
Yes, exactly. That's it. My new commitment for the year. Now we're just all big Dolly Parton fans in my house. So yeah. So that's essentially the three patterns. Yeah.
Great. And so yeah, can you show us how it works?
Exactly. So I'm going to show you the three patterns, but first we're going to talk about the previously approved, how that works and how that's handled.
Great.
And then we're going to go a little bit more complex and talk about the related records pattern. And then third, we're going to talk about the third pattern, which is the reference to outside information pattern. Okay, so this is going to get a little technical and a lot of moving parts. So hold on tight. I think probably the best way to do it is to maybe I'll share this. So what we have here is we have a right, you see all the different arrows, the previously approved, right, the other records, and you notice here in other records is where, or the related records to this. This is where we have some indexes and show the iteration, and we have the next, previous and next, and this is where you choose. So these are the controls. This is the block that makes all the controls on the screen, and then down below here is the actual data that changes, right? The synopsis, the language, the credits, and all that. But what you do not see is this hidden block of hidden variables. So I just turned it on, so it will appear on the screen. So now when we look on the screen, you see a bunch of what's going on behind the scenes, basically. And so you'll see these change. You'll see these change as we go through. Or if I choose previous record, these will change. Right, so that's the beauty of it. Okay, but here's basically what's happening is there's two variables at the top. This one called current record. So this is the main record that this page gets called. So if I'm here and I click on Love is Like a Beauty, I get called with Love is Like a Beauty, and it's album 3, track 6. So that's the main track that I get called in with. And then I also have a reference because there's two separate tables. So I get the records from one table, the actual track information from one table, but the credit information, the artist and the producer come from a different table. So I need to keep track of that. I need to have a reference to that. So that's what this is for. So this is to the record, and then it gets passed in, and this is the credits reference. And then I also have a separate set of fields here for the right-hand side, and I'm just going to call this one comparable, right? So what are you comparing the current record to, right? So, and this also has the main record that I'm comparing it. Right now it's being compared to itself, and the credits, so whatever comes from the credits table.
Okay.
Right, so with that in mind, so just remember what we're looking at is the current and the comparable. And if I go in and I look at the data, I have two cells here, right? So for the song itself, the data for the song itself is the current record, main, which got called in, is the type. This is actually not a good one because this is also the type, and comparable is also the type. This doesn't change. So here, let's go with synopsis. So synopsis is the current record. I'm looking at the new, the new, and then if I click on the other one, I get the approved version for the short synopsis. And notice also that it comes from the comp variable. So it's a bit of a trick here, but essentially I'm looking at new versus approved. So that's the takeaway. New versus approved. And I'm also looking at the current record versus the comparable record. And the comparable record can be one of two things, right? It can be the approved version of the current record, or it can be the approved version of a related record. That's why we toggled back and forth. So does that make sense? So that's pattern one, basically. Yep. Having the new. So this is how I can show the new and the approved version on the same screen.
Yep, absolutely makes sense.
Okay, now to make that even more complicated, and to try to complicate that a little bit more, the comparable here is at the beginning set equal to the main. So it's exactly set equal to the guy on the left, right? So this is current record main, and we set this one exactly to main. We also do a filter here to find the credits for that particular the record that got passed in. And then for the comparable, we also set this one to the current credits just by default. Say just pull the default. But then when I choose previously approved data. And here's a flag to show when I show the button. I only show the button when we're in condition P, or we're showing previously. P equals previous. Okay. But the action here, there's actually no action because that's what happens by default. So I didn't have to do an action at all. But when I want to switch to related records, the action. The action. Here's the action. So when I say show previous, these are the display ones, and this is the actions. So show previous, when I say show previously recorded, first of all, it turns off the menu. Then it sets the state of what I want to show is the previous, for P for previous. And then it also sets the main and the current main and the current credits. It sets them to it writes the values in there. So say the it takes I take that back. It takes the it writes into comp, so it makes the comparable equal to whatever was passed in the main record, and it also makes the credits, the comparable credits, equal to the main one, right? Because I'm not trying to look at anything else. I'm just saying, hey, this was the record that was passed in. Just make the comparable equal to what was passed in, because I want to look at the previously approved. So that's very straightforward. However, when you say show me the related records, it gets a little trickier, right? We do the same thing. We turn off the menu, and now we say that we are in related mode. So show all these things change to show the related mode. And then we have to do, so we still set the comparable in both cases. So we set the comparable, the main again, and I think I forgot here to add the record. That's the problem.
I see.
So let's actually do that here in a minute. I'm setting the comparable to the first. In this list, right? To the related records, and the index is up here. So this one. So this is called related. So all the records are pulled here. So this really just looks for all the records that are related to the current record by album ID, right? And so this one, all it does is it sets the index to the first. It brings up the first row in that list. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
It sends the main to this. So then sure enough, here's the index equals to 1. Here is the full list. And then this one puts the data in the comparable, sets the comparable to sets the comparable to number one in the list, and so that's how that works. Does that make sense? So we're using these buttons. Yeah. We're using this button to take us to the beginning of the list, and we set the beginning of the list here in the comparable. Yep. And then in the previous and next, we do very much the same. So look, if I go to the next one, I just move the index +1, and if I go to the previous, I say index -1. Right, so I go forward and backwards within the list.
Of course.
And then obviously I have to set the main and the credits, because there's two separate tables, right? So I set comparable main and comparable credits every time and this one has to be a find row, because there is I have to find the specific row in the credits table that points that matches this particular record, and then I change the related index to be either next +1. So this is kind of a tricky one, right? Because I have to decide, how do I set the index? Right, I need to move it forward, and I need to set it either to the next one or to the end or to the last one. And I think I actually have a bug in here, because right now it goes past the end, and you'll see it break when it goes past the end. But this is the one to say, hey, stop at the end of the list. Either set it up to the next one, or stop at the maximum number of rows. And so that's the idea, is that you stop at the end of the list.
Makes sense.
You'll see it break in a second, but so there's that. And the same thing here, right? Index, I find the credits, and then I stop at 2 or at 1. So I think there's a bug here as well. Not a syntactical bug, but a logical bug.
So the beauty of live television.
That's right. So that's how I can make this now go from here to show previously rated records, and I can just navigate through them with those buttons. Okay,
this is great.
So you've basically seen the what holds the state, right, and the navigation that makes this happen.
This is awesome. One quick note as well. This is obviously immediately available on the mobile app as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of it. Now, this particular one you might not want on the mobile app, because it's just this is intended for a web, because it's so wide.
Right.
So that's, you bring up a good point, that you have to decide if these are mobile editable or web only. So yeah.
Oh, but this is great. Anything else you wanted to show today as part of this demo?
No, I think that's it. So I think, I'm sorry, you're right. I forgot pattern number 3. So we showed pattern 1, which is the new and old, right? The new and the old. We also showed all this complicated carousel and how to make that happen. And then the number 3, I wanted to show, where did that go? Oh, here, the album reference. How do I put the album reference in? So album reference is basically a concatenate field, and it takes in the first part is simply the URL. And then I say, well, how do I get the album ID? I have to use a find row, and I look in the albums table. I pull the correct album that matches this particular track, essentially based on current album, and then I'll look up the album ID 2, which is an unfortunate name for a field, but this is where I'm storing. So if you look here in the albums, this is where I'm storing in this particular. Well, this is not actually the right album name. That's another bug. But this is where I'm storing the ID that takes us to Dolly Parton's album. And so I concatenate those together. And there is I'm going to show in another video. I'm going to show how to URL encode, specifically to remove all the spaces and put %20 or whatever you're supposed to put in.
Great.
But you can do that here as well. We're using a string substitute.
That's awesome.
So that's all the 3 patterns.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Daniel. As always, I saw in the chat, Jake and Bruno jumping in. Really appreciate it, fellas. Thanks for joining, and to everybody else who tuned in today. Really appreciate you watching. And so again, next week we'll be back, same time, 1 p.m. Pacific, on Wednesday, same place, of course, where we'll talk about importing and exporting data and automations. All right.
Thank you. I
Thanks,
love it.
everyone.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, Daniel. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.